Hello friends, it's Kayla and it's time for my annual tier ranking video. This isn't about ranking all the books that I've read in the year. This is just a couple random categories that I think up, and we've done some stupid ones in the past. All of my all-time least favorite books. Now we're gonna rank houses on book covers, and I'm just gonna say whether or not I would live in them. Would you eat that apple? Eyeballs. Book characters named Adam. The Chalk Man is a margarita. Today we're gonna be ranking my Literally Dead book club picks, which we do every year. I have to keep it updated. I'm gonna be ranking book talk or book community discourse, like the repetitive ones and how tired of them I am. I'm going to be ranking, celebrities who I'm told I look like in the comments. And someone recently asked me to rank Stephen Graham Jones's books, and I've done a couple other authors before. So if there's any random tier ranking things you want me to do, then I'll write it down for next year. We have to start with the Literally Dead book club. I do this one on Tier Maker, so I can link it down below in case you want to go in and rank them for yourself, because this isn't my opinion of all of the books, it's the general consensus. And basically anything in Iconic, the book club has to enjoy it, and I have to have enjoyed in order for it to get that top position. There's one at least every single year, so hopefully there's one here too. And Woof, my lowest tier, it's like I can't put something here if I loved it, even if everyone else hated it. So we have to be in equal agreement that nobody was really vibing with it, including me. We started the year with Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which I'm gonna go ahead and put in great, which is gonna mess up my whole screen. But I think most people would agree that was a good pick. I gave it a 4. I think most people tended to give it a 3 or a 4, but quite a few people gave it a 5. So we've got that. You Are Fatally Invited, I am still a little mad about because I really enjoyed that. I gave it a 4, but the book club was not vibing with this one so much. There were a couple people who enjoyed it. I kind of want to put it in decent. I feel like some people may say it was meh, but I think decent makes the most sense. I loved all the perspectives we got. I loved the mess. Yeah, The Inheritance. Oh, sadly, that one was not my favorite, and it wasn't anyone else's favorite. What I remember is it was a lot more family drama than mystery, which, is a hit or miss. So, meh. Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang. I put out a little poll to my members to see if they would put anything in the Iconic tier this year, and they all unanimously said Bat Eater. I feel like I would have put it in great because I gave it a 4, but of the book club picks, that was everyone's collective favorite. Let me know if you disagree. But I do remember now in the chat, I gave it a 4, but so many people were like, no, this was such a good one. This was a 5 for me. It was so grotesque. I guess that was my one real swing and hit, my home run of the year. Eat the Ones You Love. Oh, Eat the Ones You Love. Okay, I gave this a 3. It wasn't everything that I wanted, and I think the book club would agree that it was just, I think some people would put it in woof. It was weird, not gross enough, not fun enough. With a Vengeance, I really think that a lot of you would say woof, but like I said, I'm not putting anything in this category if I genuinely liked it, because that's just wrong. So I'm gonna put it in meh. I don't know why everyone hated this one, and we had an hour-long live show, and I still don't think I understand why everyone hated it as much as they did. I think if anyone else had written this one and it was just a mystery that came out randomly, it would have a much higher average rating, but maybe I'm wrong. I just don't know that this one deserves the hate that it's gotten. I also say that with Julie Chan is Dead. Julie Chan is Dead, I wish I could put it in this top spot. Some people would agree it's iconic, but not enough people would say iconic for it to go there. I don't know if I can put that in decent because it's my favorite thriller of the year. But the people who loved it, but it has such a low average rating, it couldn't even make it as a nominee in the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I do actually think I have to put it in decent. There's no other 5 stars I put in decent, so it just feels wrong. Am I allowed to put it up here? Sound off in the comments. Stephen Graham Jones, The Babysitter Lives, and Killer on the Road, I would also love to put in iconic, but a lot of people struggled with this one. I think this one might also be considered decent. I think the amount of DNFs that people had with this one, it's 2 novellas, which I thought would be fun, but so much conversation around the stories is that they were too drawn out, they were too long, they were confusing. So I think people would say decent. The Treasure Hunters Club. Oh gosh. I'm going between meh and decent. I thought going into the live show that more people would hate it than they did. Like while I was actively reading it, the opposite is happening with A Vengeance and the Treasure Hunters Club. I thought people would all kind of agree with A Vengeance was good and the Treasure Hunters Club was not so good. But then I came to the live show and so many people were like, no, that was a good, decent mystery. And I'm like, okay. Had a mix of 3 and 4s. There were definitely some lower ratings, but I'm going to say decent. And putting these in the same category is feeling crazy. We've had 4 decent reads. 3 meh reads. This was not the success of the book club. Futility, it's gonna continue to be not good because I'm putting it in woof. You guys hated Futility and I am sad about it. I had a good time. I don't think it was incredible. But yeah, people were really not vibing with that one. There was a handful of us that were passionate about it, and that's how the book club went this year. We had only 1 added to great, 1 an iconic, and the rest not so great. But again, this doesn't actually represent me and my book club because this was one of the most successful book club years that I've had. For me, Bat Eater was a 4, 4.5. Like I said, a 4. Julie Chen was a 5. This one was a 4.5. The Stephen Graham Jones, a 4, 3s. I didn't have anything under a 3. And that's, I think, the first year that that's ever happened because everything in this bottom category was a 2. And there's a lot of books there. Speaking of Stephen Graham Jones, let's rank where my favorites lie and which ones I still need to read. So Killer on the Road, like I just said, I guess I can't call it perfect, but I'm going to call it amazing. 4.5 stars. Both of the stories didn't quite do it for me technically by the end. And talking it through, I changed my rating of Killer on the Road from a 4 to a 5, and The Babysitter Lives is a 4. Even though I liked the idea of The Babysitter Lives more, I think they were really disturbing horror. They had grotesque things happening, which he doesn't always do. A lot of them, like Mongrels, are more like social commentary and werewolves, but like they're just also people. I Was a Teenage Slasher, of course, you know, is going to be imperfect. There's going to be only a couple here, even though this author is my favorite. And then we have a bunch of things that are going to end up in to read. He has so many novellas out, so many backlist things that I don't have and I don't even know what they are. Men, Women, and Chainsaws. I need to read that eventually. The Angel, actually, I probably shouldn't do that. That's a sequel. We'll wait on those ones. The Least of My Scars, I think I own, but I need to read that one. My Heart is a Chainsaw, that's the first book in the Indian Lake trilogy. I think that is a perfect, flawless book. I fear rereading it because I need to decide which of these 2 in the perfect category is my favorite Stephen Graham Jones, and I really don't know which it is, and I'm not ready to interrogate myself on that because I think I Was a Teenage Slasher has edged My Heart is a Chainsaw out, but I don't know for sure. We read both of those for the Literally Dead book club, so there's full hour-long discussions for those and Killer on the Road and one more we'll see in here. Don't Fear the Reaper, I think, was an amazing sequel. Angel of Indian Lake, I think, was a really, really good finale. I don't love series or read series super often, so the fact that they even got 4 stars is pretty great. Zombie Bake Off, I do have in my TBR closet. Need to read that. The Backbone of the World, also need to read that. Buffalo Hunter, I feel like I should have a whole different category to say like the ones that I recommend the most. So I'm just gonna pop it up here so you know that if you are to take a recommendation from me, even if it was not because I actually recommend my perfect category less, Buffalo Hunter is at the top of my recommendation list. Demon Theory, I don't know what that is. The Night Cyclist, I don't know what that is, but I need to read it. The Only Good Indians is another one I would put right up here. We read that for the book club and people really loved this. It was their entry point into Stephen Graham Jones, and I'm really glad that that happened. Leadfeather, I think, is his first novel, and I have in my TBR closet. Wait for Night, no clue what that is. Night of the Mannequins, I'm also going to put in perfect. That one's not a contender as my all-time favorite because it's a novella, and I don't know, I just don't think, I think if I have a favorite Stephen Graham Jones, it has to be one that I was inside of for like 300 plus pages. The Indigo Room is an Audible exclusive or an Amazon exclusive. I haven't read. Mapping the Interior was my very first Stephen Graham Jones, and I recommend that one super highly too. Great introduction to the kind of vibe that he's doing. After the People Lights Have Gone Off, I also own and need to read. Floating Boy and The Girl Who Couldn't Fly is a collaboration with my other favorite author, Paul Tremblay. It was not their best, you know? Attack of the 50-Foot Indian, I don't know what that is, but it sounds really fun, so I should probably read that. Zombie Sharks with Metal Teeth is a short story collection that, and I get Stephen Graham Jones. Like when he's doing weird stuff and he's saying weird things and he's just going on these tangents, like I'm so along for the ride. That short story collection, what was that? It was so strange and not in a good way. All the Beautiful Sinners, I don't know what that is. The Last Final Girl is one that is in my amazing category, and yet I would not recommend. I think you have to have a very specific odd taste in order to like that. It's written, from what I remember, as like a script kind of, and it's pretty meta. Not for Nothing, I think I also own. I need to shrink down everything in this category. There's so much for me to read. Like I have a favorite author, and look at the backlist. I still get to enjoy. Oh, and this last one here is The Ones That Got Away. It's another short story collection. I gave it a 4. I think there were some things in it that did not do it for me, but there was enough that were so good. I don't really remember any of them at this point, but I mean, it makes sense that I'm listing this as my favorite author, right? This is the category. I've only disliked 2 things, and everything else is amazing and incredible. And I hope that you just left this with a recommendation, even though I didn't really talk about what the books are about. That's not what the tier ranking stuff is for. Maybe one day I will do an entire dedicated video once I complete all of the novellas on the bottom, and I can give you a really thorough recommendation guide. Now let's get into my celebrity doppelganger. The thing is, I don't look like anyone. And yet I get comments regularly that, oh my God, you look like a celebrity. This is not the moment to make fun of the way I look or anybody else, okay? These are the ones that I have gotten in the last couple years. Number 1, Colleen Hoover. Do I see it? I can't find the comments regarding this one. There's one specific video where maybe I was especially blonde and I was getting a lot of comments, and then the next day I dyed my hair red. Maybe if I really squint. Perhaps there's something with the eyes, with the hair at the time, the face shape. The next one, Beyonce. The specific video, the specific comment was from Kemunto Books. You look like Beyonce here. Here's the example photo for you. This is the video that I was filming when I got compared to the queen herself, Beyonce. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you need to go see your optometrist expeditiously, but thank you. Drew Barrymore. I want to take this. I want to take this one so bad because she's my favorite, has been since I was a child. Jamie is the one who said, is it just me or does she look like Drew Barrymore? Here's the example. That's what I looked like on that day. And I feel like there's something. I got compared a lot to Drew Barrymore when I was a child. I think I'm going to say if I really squint, I could see it. Next up, oh, Melissa McCarthy. I used to get this a lot more at the beginning of my channel, and I could definitely see it then. I don't have any comments from back then, but especially when we had a similar ombre. She's probably got the closest nose to me as far as it's a little like, you know, it's a little snout-like. Maybe our lip shape is similar. Maybe our face shape is similar. Back in the day, I saw it. People used to say like, oh, you look like you could be her sister. You could be, I never got it in real life, mind you. None of these I've ever, nobody's shockingly told me I look like Beyonce in real life. I used to, like I said, I used to get Drew Barrymore, but Melissa McCarthy, like never in real life did anyone ever tell me I looked like or looked like Melissa McCarthy. Then we've got Wendy Williams. Austin said, random, but you look vaguely like Wendy Williams. Like you could be cousins or something. It's very striking as a Wendy fan. And this was the video that I was filming when I got that. Well, you know, side by side, maybe there's something. Is there something? Let's see if I really squint. I can see it. Do you agree? Last one. I get this one all the time. I don't think people think I look like Fiona Apple, but they will comment that this specific album, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, every time I see the cover, I think it's you because your eyes are so similar. This, again, I think was the video that it was commented on. I don't know if you can really see it here. I think the big bulging eye is also why I get Wendy Williams. She has Graves' disease. I do not. But I think Colleen Hoover too. You know, all of these people, nobody has small eyes here. So I think the eyes might be what we're talking about. I don't know if I see the Fiona Apple, but I get it so much. I guess I see it. In this close-up for sure. In general, I don't look like Fiona Apple, and I don't think anyone thinks that. This is my ranking. Oh, I guess I think I look like all of them. Great. Okay. So mash all of these people together, maybe without Beyonce, and we've got something in common. What do you think? The shower is now running in the background. I don't know if you can hear it, but lastly, I'm going to do repetitive, cyclical book community discourse. Maybe not even my take on these things, but how tired I am of them coming back around over and over again. The same things over and over and over again. I made this sleepiness scale for like actually how tired I was in my body for a 24-hour readathon a couple years ago. And I thought I would bring this scale back because it goes from could I be more awake to basically at rest with a range. And so here is all of the things that I feel like comes up every couple months on. I'm not really on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I don't know why I said not really. I check threads occasionally. I'm occasionally on Book Talk, you know, things in my comment section. These are just things that I'm aware of. If you know any more of tired book drama discourse you would like me to include, I could add more next year. The first one on my list is performative reading. When at the end of the year, everyone comes out of the woodwork and they're like, who is reading 200 books a year? How are people possibly reading 300 books a year? How is this person reading 100 books a year? Everyone is lying. Everyone is doing this for views. Reading isn't competitive. And I think this one needs to rest. I really, maybe actually I'll put it with losing the will to go on, because there is something to be said for the conversation around reading for the aesthetics and talking about overconsumption in general. And people, like there are people out there, I suppose, who are reading for the attention, who are like, how many books can I possibly read so people will think that I'm smart? I've never met anyone, I've never seen anybody who I think is doing that. And I promise you that typing out that tweet, you spent more energy doing that than 99% of the people reading hundreds of books a year are thinking about how much they're reading. There's always the same conversations regarding this too. It's like, oh, well, you know, they're reading audiobooks. Yep, that's a book. Or they're reading children's books, which is still a book. Or they're only reading short books. Guess what? Still a book. I think when people say, oh, I read 200 books in the year, other people interpret that as someone saying, I read maybe because that person is reading 1,000-page tomes that are intellectually stimulating. They think that someone who says, I read 200 books, that they're pretending that they also read that kind of thing. And I think that people read short books, people listen to audiobooks. If you read 100 picture books, those are still books. There is always this talk about competition in the book community, and the people who are looked at as if they're competing aren't the ones who are competing. Like, I'm just reading. If you look at what I read in a year and you feel a certain way about that, that's not on me. Some people prioritize reading over other hobbies and other interests. Some don't. Some people read faster. Some don't. I don't feel any way about anybody who reads a different amount than me, and I don't know why anybody would. Also, because there's more and more people doing it like full time, there's that conversation around it too. It's like, don't compare yourself to someone who's reading full time. I also read this amount when I was working full time. I do it now when I'm working more part time. It's fair if you tell yourself, like, I don't need to read as much as this person I'm watching. I don't need to read competitively. That's all valid. But putting it out there as a blanket statement that these other people are competitively reading, it's a little nuts. So I'm putting it in losing the will to go on, because I think there probably is some conversation that's valid in there with a small group of the book community. Actually, I'm going to move these categories separately because overconsumption is a different conversation. I don't think is completely tired. I think we can talk about people, I don't know, people purchasing for the aesthetics, wanting to own a certain amount of books, never picking up anything that's used or borrowing anything, people who are specifically like looking down on other people who don't have like perfect, pristine, brand new books. That's definitely not a tired conversation. But judging people for owning a lot of books, I don't know how tired this conversation is. I think I'm gonna have to put it in the middle because there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? But we are supporting positive things. We're supporting art, we're supporting authors, we're paying bills, we're keeping indie bookstores open. At the end of the day, I could be spending my money on so many worse things. This is my one vice, is physical books. And I still support my local library. I still support a lot of great things, and I donate books, and I'm doing positive things, and like, I could be putting my money towards crack. I could be doing crack. But also, there are things to be said for how many books people are purchasing and how these huge TBRs are taking over your life and sometimes impacting you negatively, and purchasing 10 different special editions of the same book, and how much prices are ramping up unnecessarily for special editions and reselling. I think there is conversations to be had. I don't think I have an answer to anything, so I'm gonna put it in a middle ground. Books are not political and reading is not political. This conversation, I think, should be put to rest. Books are political. Books are always going to be political. Reading has always been political. Literacy is political. Access to books is political. There are plenty of us who do have a lot of privilege and don't have to think day to day how the reading publishing industry affects us. Your own personal reading, you can pretend is not political, but the community will always be political. I think you can choose to curate your space, and that's up to you. I just think that it's so interesting how people want to be influencers so bad, and yet you don't want to influence positively. There is something to be said for escapism in books and curating your space, and maybe you're engaging in great things outside of books, but why would you not want to take your platform and support humanity? The next bit is, if you don't read nonfiction, you're not a real reader. This one comes up in certain spaces where people love to talk shit about other people, and comparing who's a real reader and who isn't. People who only engage with books to get something out of it for themselves as far as knowledge, or how it's going to change their life. They believe that people who stay away from nonfiction and self-help and intellectual books are wrong for doing so. I think this discourse gets tired as far as just discounting fiction, because there is so much to gain from fiction. But also, I do think that people need to be reading more nonfiction. Just in general, I think that if you're not reading something that teaches you something at some point in your year, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So I don't think that the hate-filled conversations are necessary, but I do think it's bringing up a point that there are large groups of people who are really trying actively not to learn and not to change and not to understand the world around them. That's proven because there are so many people who I see online just in random comment sections who will say things like, don't be mad because I didn't know this, I wasn't taught it in school. Meanwhile, they're 50 years old. And it's we need to learn how to educate ourselves outside of a traditional educational environment. We need to be learning about the world around us. I think everybody can benefit from being educated and understanding other experiences. And that can happen in fiction. But also in the day and age we live on the internet, it's so easy for misinformation to be spread. I believe easier than in a book, because there's more fact checking, even though you can absolutely spread propaganda within a book. If you're already an avid reader and you exclusively read things for escapism, but you engage with the world around you, I get that. But if you are stuck in a bubble, you only read for escapism, and you're not engaging with anything, your whole life is escapism, that makes me sad, and I think you should read more about the world around you. I don't know where I'm putting this one, because some of you might want to fight me about that. Next piece of discourse is stop using AI to make your covers and write your books. I could not be more awake for this conversation and this discourse, because if you are an artist and you refuse to support other artists, I will not be supporting you. If I find out your book was written by AI or your book cover was designed by AI, then I'm going to assume your book was also written by AI, because we just don't have the same morals. Generative AI is a huge problem. And I do think that there are some cases where AI has been useful for people. It's not going anywhere. And there are certain industries who are going to have to recognize that. I just don't think the art world is one that we should ever be supporting a book knowing that it was designed by AI. I don't think you have a right to stealing other art, which is how generative AI works, in order to have a cover for your book. Ugly art is better than stolen art. People have been making book covers for forever in clip art on Canva, hiring a very cheap artist who would love to get the job. You're not entitled to free stolen labor just because you wrote a book. People need to get creative with their marketing, how they put a book out there, how they push people to read it. Books that have nothing but just the title on the front cover can find an audience. There's definitely plenty of conversations to have within this discourse about who gets marketing budgets within publishing, who is set up for success, how much access you might have, how much money you might have. Regardless, that has always been a conversation before AI. And generative AI has no positive impact on any of us or the planet. So I'm wide awake for this conversation because there's still plenty of people who are arguing it. If you open the thread, there's a lot of people saying, but what about this? But what about this? Don't tag authors in negative reviews. This discourse, I guess, is just dandy because clearly people still need to be talking about it. It still is regularly coming up in conversation because people are regularly tagging authors in negative reviews and it's unnecessary. There's a conversation around reader spaces and author spaces and how authors should never enter a reader space. Unfortunately, we are all existing on the same internet and on the same social media. And I think that authors should not engage with readers maybe as much as some do. I think there are plenty of authors, especially earlier in their career, who love getting tagged by people, who love seeing their work promoted, and they have no choice but to be on social media to help market their stuff and themselves as a brand. There's definitely no reason to go out of your way to tag an author in a negative review, to call attention to them in their notifications, to say, hey, I hated this book and here's why. I think authors should be open to critique. I think that if they can handle it and they think it would be helpful to look at reviews, but generally reviews are for other readers. It's to gauge if you will like a book. And the next one is negative reviews shouldn't be online. And if you're not in the book spaces, you might think this conversation is like, this is discourse that's really happening. It is. People will come onto Beyonce's internet and say, we shouldn't be writing negative reviews anymore. It's mean. It's hurtful to authors. We should only post positivity and be nice. And I think those people are just missing the entire point of a review because it is not a critique for the author to take. It is to help other people gauge if they will like a book or not, especially if a book could be harmful. You might want to put in a warning in there if there's something in the book that isn't talked about in the synopsis that you think people might want to know about in a positive or negative way. Like, that's helpful. And I just don't think that those people who say that would agree with any other industry. Like, I guarantee when you go to a restaurant or you buy a piece of tech or you're going to a clothing store, shopping online, you rely on the reviews to see if that thing's gonna fit you, if that thing tastes good. And obviously everything is subjective, but it does absolutely help guide you in what you might like based on what other people might like. This conversation absolutely needs to be at rest. It needs to go to bed. I don't see this conversation a ton. When I do, it's exhausting to see. If you, again, want to curate your space and you only want to share positive reviews, that's totally on you. But thinking that the bookish space shouldn't include negative reviews, that's a wild take. Next piece of discourse is that the book community only recommends the same 5 books. And I'm definitely losing the will to go on with this one, because if you're at a point in engaging with the book community and you haven't figured out how to curate your feed and you haven't found diversity, like, that is truly your own issue. It's not a book community issue. And I think it's insulting to the people who are really trying to build communities, who come from so many different backgrounds and are finding their niches and are really helping people find books, for you to just say, oh, I scroll and it's the same 5 books over and over again. I absolutely think there is too many books that are getting too much attention, and the same 10 people who everyone talks about are often reading the same 10 books. But I think that's valid for their communities. And if the people who want the same book just in a different font over and over and over again are getting that out of scrolling their book talk, then that's fine for them. Next piece of discourse that comes up constantly: audiobooks aren't books. This is at rest. This needs to stop. It's constant and it's exhausting. Like, if anybody came to you in real life and they were like, oh, I read a book, here's this book, like, let me tell you all about it, I recommend it to you. And then at the end of the conversation, they go, oh, and I recommend the audiobook, that's how I consumed it. There's no way you'd be like, oh, so you didn't read the book, I'm not taking your recommendation. Like, it literally doesn't matter how you're consuming a book. Yes, there are people who listen to an audiobook and they're not even really paying attention, for sure. And they speed it up to a speed where they're not even processing everything. But people do that with physical books too. There are plenty of people who've come onto the internet in the last couple months who said, oh, I skip everything in a book except reading the dialogue. Like I skim read. It can happen via both mediums. So just specifically calling out audiobooks, let alone it being ableist, it's a silly conversation. That's it for all of my tier ranking today. And I will see you in another video soon. Bye.